Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over my first impressions review of the Call of Duty Vanguard Alpha. It's been out for about 3 or 4 hours now. I've probably played about 2.5 hours of it, so I would say I have a pretty good opinion on the mode so far. Just keep in mind, for a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in this video, I'm going to go over the pros and the cons. A lot of my issues with this don't even have to do with this mode itself, because some of these problems I have don't really negatively impact Champion Hill all that much, but I could tell it's going to negatively impact the 6v6 mode, so therefore I kind of want to talk about it within this video. But it's also important to note that a lot of the mechanics and stuff that's in it within this alpha, it's not going to even be in the other 6v6 modes for all we know. Like, for example, the armor. Some people have this problem with the armor system. Armor's not really going to be in the other modes other than maybe as like a kill streak like it was within Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. That's not going to be, a consistent thing that everyone's using, like everyone uses armor within this mode, which I actually think armor makes this mode a lot better than it would be otherwise in some ways, but not in other ways, and I'll kind of go over that in this video. But we're going to start off with the pros, everything I like about this so far, everything I like about the game, how it feels, how it plays. Obviously, this is just an alpha of one mode, so it's impossible to tell how this game is going to actually be from this. I can't be like, oh, it's better than Cold War, it's better than Modern Warfare. I can't tell because it's one mode in an alpha form. And also keep in mind that I only played on the PlayStation 4. I'm sure this game looks a lot nicer and runs a lot smoother on PlayStation 5. So none of my negatives for this game have anything to do with the graphic fidelity or the frames per second that I was getting, because it looked pretty bad and the frames were also really bad. It did not run well. My PS4 was about to explode, but I'm not really going to use that as a con because this game is really not meant for last gen. It's clearly a next gen game. You want to get the next gen consoles as soon as you possibly can, but I was playing on the old day one PlayStation 4 and oh my god, that thing was going to explode, and the graphics didn't look too nice. Honestly, they looked kind of like COD World War II's graphics, which came out 4 years ago, so obviously it's not good to look like a game that came out 4 years ago, and the frames were kind of all over the place. But again, that was the same kind of deal with Black Ops Cold War on last gen, and when I got next gen, it ended up being a lot better. So that's important to keep in mind. I'm not going to even include that as a negative. But let's get into the pros. So first things first, the movement feels really good. So obviously, like I said, for what I was playing on, the frames per second were all over the place. But in terms of just the general movement, it feels good. It's very similar to Warzone or Modern Warfare 2019's movement, and I've never had an issue with that movement. I don't know why I always hear people complaining about movement in the past couple CODs. I haven't had a problem with movement in Call of Duty since like maybe Advanced Warfare. Like all the older CODs have a lot of, clunky movement here and there. I just don't feel that way for any of the recent ones. It always feels smooth to me. I've never had an issue. I do think Modern Warfare 2019, you were a little bit slower than usual, and I think Cold War is definitely one of the fastest feeling movements we've ever had. That's boost on the ground, obviously. If you're talking about, exosuits and stuff, obviously. The exosuit games are going to be faster, but in terms of boots on the ground, I think Cold War is one of the fastest feeling ones. Also, the FOV slider definitely helps make it feel faster, even if it's not actually faster. But this just feels like a little bit faster, but still kind of similar to how Warzone and Modern Warfare 2019 feels, and I think it feels just fine. I have literally no issue with it. I don't see it negatively impacting the mode at all, but there are other things revolving around this that I do have an issue with, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But just the general movement feels good. I like it. The maps that they have within this mode are, for the most part, well designed. I think the only map I don't like is the one with the plane in the middle. I think there's like 2 planes or whatever. That one's way too wide open, so I feel like it just doesn't flow very well. And I do have an issue with destructible environments. We'll talk about that in the negatives, but in terms of just how the maps are actually designed themselves, they have good layouts. It's just the destructible parts of it. We'll talk about that a little bit later because that's something I have a bit of an issue with. The guns look good, sound good. That's completely fine. I have no issue with the animations or the sounds of the weapons. Again, I said the graphics didn't look too well on PlayStation 4, but again, I'm taking that into account. I watched some PlayStation 5 gameplay. The guns look just fine, and even on my PS4, they still sounded nice, and they had good animations and such, so I'm definitely impressed with the weapons. I mean, it's World War II weapons, so they're always going to be kind of fun to use, and I didn't feel like there was necessarily a balance issue. Obviously, we haven't got much playtime to really be able to figure that out, but in terms of the weapons here, they all feel relatively similar. I don't really think one gun automatically outshines other guns. I thought the STG, the Thompson, the MP40, and the BAR were all pretty much equal. The other guns I don't really get to test out enough, so I can't really make an opinion on those, but for those main 4 weapons there, they were definitely very, very good. I'm very glad that the Ghost perk requires you to actually move for it to work. That's really going to be important for 6v6. I wouldn't really care if it didn't work like that in this mode, but I do think that's really important for 6v6. Very glad Ghost works that way. And the soundtrack is a banger. The soundtrack is really good. I mean, Bear McCreary did an incredible job. I love the menu music and a lot of the music that plays within the game itself. Very, very good. And as a whole, I think the Champion Hill mode is a cool idea. I like how it kind of combines gunfight and, of course, Battle Royale, and it kind of keeps it a little bit more action-packed for more of the match. Gunfight kind of has some moments where you're kind of just not doing much for a little bit, but this is always pretty much action-packed other than when you're waiting in the little bonus room, or not the bonus room, you know, like the buy area. Sometimes you have to wait there for like 60 seconds, and it's not really a big deal. Pull out your phone, go on Twitter real quick or something while you're waiting. It's not a big deal, obviously. I like how the buy system works, too. I like how everything's very simplistic. That is all good. But let's get into the negatives now. Some of these negatives are things they can definitely easily fix, and then other of these negatives are things that they either definitely won't fix, or it'll be very hard for them to fix, or I doubt they're going to fix because I just don't think people really care as much as maybe I do. But I'm just going to throw out everything I have to say. First of all, this one I think is definitely going to be fixed because I hear a lot of people talking about it. When you're damaged, your screen gets way too dark, and this also has to do with flinch as well. I think when you're getting shot at in this game, you can't see shit. You can't. Not only is it just too dark, but also the flinch is really bad, so you're like, your gun is aiming up into the sky practically. It feels very different than Cold War because Cold War had pretty much no flinch. So you were just kind of like, you know, you're gonna have to deal with that shit. And the reason why I think that's an issue is because it makes it so if you shoot first, you're probably gonna win the gunfight. And combine that with the faster time to kill, which we'll talk about later, you're like done. If you get shot at first, you're probably going to lose that gunfight. I've had very rare instances in this game so far where someone shoots at me first and I'm able to shoot them back and end up winning that gunfight. It's very rare unless they're across the other side of the map. If they're anywhere within like a 10 to 15 foot radius, they're gonna kill me. They're gonna delete me because I can't even see. I can't see. It gets pitch black. Your gun shoots right up. There's not much you can do about it. I think they need something about the flinch and also your screen getting way too dark when you're damaged. That's huge to me. Definitely huge. I'm not a big fan that you can't see your kill death ratio in game. I think you should be able to see everyone's kill death ratio. I'm assuming they do this for a number of reasons. They did this in Modern Warfare 2019 where they wouldn't show your deaths during the match. And I'm sure, yeah, obviously the main game is going to have, you know, your kills at least. Hopefully they also have deaths because I really would like to see that. But in this mode, they don't have either. You can't even see your total kills or deaths until the very end of the game where it'll show you the amount of kills that you had. I just want to be able to see it throughout the game. I want to see if my teammate is really sucking as badly as I think he's sucking, and I really want to see how I'm doing. I don't want to have to keep track in my head or whatever. I just want to see as the game goes on, see what everyone's score is. I really think that would be really cool, and I'm kind of not happy that they don't have that. Mounting, I don't like mounting. I've said this before. I think mounting is stupid. It's garbage. I would just prefer it wasn't in the game at all, but because it's already there, they should just nerf it. You should not have laser beam accuracy while mounting. Make it so you can have a little bit of, less recoil than you normally would, sure, but not so it's like pinpoint accurate like it is now. I feel like people just mount all the time. I mean, I walk in front of anything and I see someone mounting with an LMG across the map, they will laser beam me to shreds. I don't like that at all. Blind fire is actually not a big deal at all. I maybe used blind fire once and I don't think I've seen anybody else use it, because it's not a very accessible feature. You don't do it that often. There's not many times where blind fire makes sense to do, and there's not many places you can even successfully use blind fire. So I have no problem with blind fire, but mounting, I don't like it. I would prefer it was just gotten rid of, but I don't think they're gonna do that. So at least just nerf it extremely because it's a little bit ridiculous. The respawn timer, I understand that for this mode, but I really hope that's not in the main game because Modern Warfare had the same thing and it was really frustrating. Just let me get back into the action as quick as humanly possible, please. In this mode, it makes sense, though. I understand why you have to wait a couple seconds to get back into the action. That does make sense. Now let's talk about the time to kill and the armor. I don't really know how I feel about this right now because it's hard to tell what the time to kill is like because of armor. Armor is very common in this mode. You see armor everywhere, and when you have a gunfight when the other person has a lot of armor and you have a lot of armor, it does feel like the time to kill is slower, more like World War II from 2017. And that's good. I think that time to kill would be good, but the problem is, like I said, that's only with armor. If you don't have armor, it is still too fast to me. It feels like Modern Warfare 2019 fast. You get deleted pretty easily. You could delete other people pretty easily. And it's going to be really bad for the other modes. I don't see people complaining about it right now because, like I said, armor is very common in this mode. Armor drops like everywhere. It's very easy to buy more armor, so everyone's always having armor. So that's why the gunfights are actually kind of there. In the main game, we're obviously not going to have armor readily available. It's probably going to be a kill streak just like Cold War, which is fine. but then it's not going to be something that's always there. So the time to kill for the main game is probably going to be relatively fast. And you guys know me, I think fast time to kill is not good for the game in many different ways. It decreases the skill gap, and it also makes the game a lot slower paced. So I really do not want that to be the case. And I already see that happening here because people do camp a lot in this mode. I mean, it's Call of Duty, they're going to camp regardless, even if the time to kill was really slow, but still, I do think time to kill being a little bit too fast is an issue, and I'm going to keep complaining about it until they change it, or it's probably not going to be changed, to be honest, because I do think most people don't really care. I think it's a big deal, though. They definitely need to address it. And armor itself in this mode, it does negatively impact it because, yes, it's making the time to kill longer, but the problem is if you go up against somebody who has full armor and you don't, you're dead. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like I said before, you're already going to probably lose a gunfight if you get shot first anyways. But if that guy has armor, oh my god, you are done. You are done. And it's like, it's just not fair to me. I feel like it makes it so a lot of gunfights feel inconsistent. And I think it would have been a little bit better and a little bit more, I guess, reliable if it didn't do that. And I get why they have it that way, because it does make you really want to get as much armor as you can get. But that's not the only thing you can buy in this game. There's tons of things you can buy here. So it's not just like, oh, the more money you get, the more armor you're going to have. Well, not all the time you're going to have the ability to buy armor consistently, because you're not even going back to the buy station that often anyways. So it's kind of like, I just don't like how that works. I think the time to kill should just be slower by default, and armor should either be removed or maybe changed in a way, maybe have only one piece of armor that you can get rather than having 3 full armor plates. I think it works in Warzone. That's a whole different scenario, but this slower, not slower, but smaller scale, like arena shooter type thing, I just don't think it works well. Explosive rounds, why? Why does that exist? I don't get the incinerator rounds and explosive rounds. They should not be on ARs. That's stupid. I don't think I have to explain why that's stupid, but just no, get rid of those or nerf them or something, because I don't like that. Now, I talked about graphics before. This could be better on next gen, I don't know, but the colors are really bland, which makes the visibility really bad. I heard a lot of early leakers saying this game was going to be really colorful and such, and I definitely think it could be colorful on other maps, but this map in particular, this area, all 4 of them, it looks just gross. And this is not about the graphics, this is the colors. It's just gray, brown, and green. You could have those colors and it could still pop. They've done that before. Just make it so the colors actually pop rather than it being really just have this like gray filter overtone over it. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to explain really, but I think it needs a little bit more of a pop to it. And I don't think this has that. Maybe it does on next gen, and maybe I just need to play next gen to see that. But at least on PS4, it does not. It's hard to see people. The color schemes are just, they're not. It's not fun to look at. Not even in terms of the textures or whatever. Just in terms of the colors. I don't like that at all, to be honest. Footsteps are definitely too quiet. Now, this is something that I saw people talking about. They're like, oh, you complaining the footsteps was too loud. Now you're complaining they're too quiet. Well, yeah, but you gotta find a middle ground. You know, it's like you're complaining about maybe it being too hot in your house or something, and then your parents crank up the AC to like the coldest possible temperature, and then you're freezing now. And it's like, oh, well, you were just complaining about being hot, now you complain about being cold. Well, you have to find a middle ground, you know what I mean? Same thing with the footsteps. I do think it's just, you can't even, they're not even, I don't even think they're there, to be honest. Like, I don't think I've heard a single footstep so far in this game, which, it's not a terrible thing. I would prefer it to be that than to them be really loud. But just find a middle ground. Is that hard to find a middle ground? I don't know. It just would make sense to me. Now, this is something I talked about before with the map layout. I like the map layouts, but I don't like the destructible environments. I think it works if it's like just a few locations here and there, but some of these maps, it's like everywhere. Especially that one, I think you guys know which one I'm talking about, where almost every little panel of the map is a destructible environment. It just opens up way too many sight lines to the point where there's literally no cover. These maps are literally made of paper. Even places that aren't necessarily destructible, you can still shoot through because there's armor penetration just crazy in this game. Or not armor penetration, but like wall penetration. It's crazy in this game. So there's like no cover. And when you combine that with the fast time to kill, there's many instances where you get insta-killed across the map and you have absolutely no idea where you got shot from. You're just like, what just happened? You couldn't even do anything about it because the map does not have any cover or any availability for you to actually do anything. And if this time to kill was slower, I wouldn't have an issue with this. I probably wouldn't care because I'd be like, oh, you can just run away, evade the gunfire because you're not going to die right away. But because it's faster, it's like I get way too many situations where I get killed across the map and there's nothing I could have done about it, and not a single thing. There's no better position I could have been in because guess what? The whole map is like leveled practically, at least for a couple of the maps. I'm sure this is not going to be a big issue for 6v6. I just think the destructible environments, it's a cool idea, but it's kind of a gimmick. It's not really making the game any better. It's just there simply to be a gimmick. Just, oh, look at this new cool feature we have. I just don't think it necessarily needs to be there, but regardless, let's move on to the last two things I have here. The minimap, the Modern Warfare minimap returning, don't like that. I don't like how there's no gunfire on the minimap if they shoot. Obviously, if you get UAV, you see people, but otherwise, they don't show up. I think for this mode, it's not a big deal, but for 6v6, it's going to be a huge issue. Hopefully, they can change that because I don't want people to just not show up on the minimap when they shoot guns. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. That feature just never added up, and the minimap itself is also way too small. You can barely see it. I literally played the first 2 games. Someone asked me about the minimap, and I was like, I don't even think there is a minimap. I literally did not even know there was a minimap because it was so small. I just didn't even use it. So that's just weird to me. And last thing, the HUD. I don't hate the HUD. I think it looks fine, but there's not enough information on it. We should have stuff like health bars. They also don't really actively tell you how much armor you have. Like, it tells you when you first pick it up, it'll like pop up on your screen, but then it like goes away and you just don't know how much armor you have. And I'm just like, what? That's weird. I think they need a couple more things in the HUD. Definitely your health bar like they did within Call of Duty Cold War. I really like the health bar. I would think that should be in every single Call of Duty. And again, it's probably because the time to kill is pretty fast, so they're like, doesn't really matter. But I would prefer to have it for sure. And actually, one more thing I forgot to mention. When you switch your weapon, you have to like cock the weapon back before you're able to shoot it. And obviously after you do it once in the game, it'll be fine, but you shouldn't have to do that at all, because if I don't switch my weapon right away when the game starts and I get into a gunfight and I want to switch my weapon, now I have to cock back that weapon before actually being able to shoot it. Like, you should be able to just pull out that gun right away and start firing. I should not have to cock it back or whatever. You have that little animation when the round first starts, sure, but not for when you switch the gun. That's stupid to me. They should definitely fix that. And yeah, that's about all the complaints I have right now. Obviously, the cons were much longer than the pros. The only reason that's the case is because it's an alpha and I really want to provide as much feedback as humanly possible. I'm sure I could have thought of more positives to mention. It's definitely overall good. Just because I talked about the cons a lot longer does not mean I think it's worse than it is good, because it is good. It's fun. I'm having a good time. I just don't think it's going to be that replayable because it's just this one mode. So I don't think I'm going to play that much this weekend, to be honest. I'm definitely more excited for the beta and the full game when that all comes out. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.